Let's see if this is working. All right. So, hello, hello, hello. I hope that everybody out there is having a wonderful weekend. And when you join us, just tell us where you're from and your name. And if you are watching this at a later date and time, don't worry about that. But today, what I want to talk to you about is phrasal verbs. All right. And phrasal verbs, they're very important. They're very useful. They're great to learn, even though they can be extremely, extremely frustrating because phrasal verbs can be very confusing. You're dealing with prepositions, which are words that people can easily forget, and also because phrasal verbs, you have one of them and they have several different meanings. Ah, hello, hello. Brazil here. Excellent. Awesome. Welcome. Um, we're going to talk about phrasal verbs with get. We've already done one video, one lesson about some get phrasal verbs, which we will link in the description below. And I want to talk to you about 5 more of those phrasal verbs. And I don't want to go over too many at one time because, again, they each have different meanings and it's best to do a little at a time. So if you can just learn maybe 2 or 3 phrasal verbs in one day or even one week, it is really useful. So I'm going to go over 5 different phrasal verbs with you today, and then we're going to do a little practice. And I am going to test your knowledge and what you remember from this lesson. So if you are in the chat, I am going to ask you some questions and I want you to type your answer so we can all see it. And if you're watching this video later, again, my recommendation, use the comments section as a whiteboard and just write your answer and keep trying to produce the language. Even though you're listening to a video, it doesn't always have to be passive learning. You can make it into an active language learning lesson and actually write out your answers. So today, let's go ahead and begin with the first phrasal verb. Again, if you're just joining us, hit us up in the chat. Tell us your name, where you're from. We say, I know, is it Natalia's in here from Brazil? So again, say hello. Which country are you joining us from? It would be great to hear from you. So the first phrasal verb, let's go ahead and begin. We're going to talk about is get around. Okay. So again, this phrasal verb has 3 different meanings. The first one, when you're talking and using get around, it just basically means to travel to different places. And this can be talking about traveling from one country to another country, and you travel all throughout the world, and you could say, wow, that person really gets around. It can also mean shorter distances, talking about just being around the home. And I think this is a little more common usage of get around in this context. If you're talking about somebody who's older, maybe a grandparent, or somebody who just broke their leg and you're asking, do they have trouble getting around the house, like getting out of bed and walking around different rooms? And I gave you an example sentence there. Hey, what's up, George? Also from Brazil. Awesome. The example sentence I gave you for get around is, for her age, my grandmother gets around easily. So again, getting around is more the literal sense, just talking about moving from one place to another. Also, get around can mean to avoid something, where you literally want to get around something else because you want to avoid it. And this is frequently used in the context of traffic. We should find a way to get around this traffic. I hope you like my lovely picture down there. Supposedly, that is from the longest traffic jam in the world. It was 62 miles in Beijing, and apparently it lasted for 12 days. So to get around something is to really just to go around it. And the final meaning of get around is to, if you're talking about just having sexual relations with many people. And this is, usually used in the context of, it's not typically a compliment. You're usually talking about somebody else and you're not talking about yourself. So typically it's used in just a sentence like, oh, he gets around, or oh, she gets around. And using it, people would use it more so as like gossip in talking about other people getting around. So those are the 3 different meanings of get around. And again, I know this can be difficult because you have one phrasal verb, 3 different meanings. But again, we're going to practice this. It's good to know how to use it, and especially keep practice, because practice makes perfect. Again, if you just joined us, we are talking about different phrasal verbs with get. You can hit us up in the chat, say hello, where are you joining us from? Yeah, it'd be great to hear from you guys. So that is get around. Let's look at the next phrasal verb that I want to show you is this one, get through. Okay, so get through also, yay, it has 3 different meanings again that we need to learn. So to get through, you can also use it with the other preposition. It can be a 3-word prepositional phrase, get through to, but I'll talk to you about that one in just a second. So to get through, the first meaning is just when you're talking on the phone, okay? You're trying to contact somebody, and sometimes I think we've all been there, depending, maybe our cell reception is not good, and you have a difficult time getting through to somebody else. And often you might hear somebody say, like I gave an example, it said, I'll call you later, I can't get through. I'll call later, I can't get through right now. You're not able to connect, you're not able to reach that person because perhaps you don't have cell reception, you can't get through. The other way that it's used, get through to, and this is talking about like you get through to someone else, is to effectively communicate with somebody else. You're trying to reach somebody, you're trying to make them understand, you're trying to show them your point of view, you need to get through to somebody. And a lot of times this might be used in the context when talking about maybe children or students that are difficult to work with. And as a teacher, this has happened to me before when I taught kids way back when, and some of the students, some of the kids, it was tough to get through to them because of one reason or another. And like I said in the example sentence, he doesn't listen to anyone. Nobody can get through to him. So it's it's a little more difficult to communicate with somebody. And a lot of times it's used in the negative, talking about you can't get through to somebody else. The last one with get through is to survive or to endure something, all right? You need to get through it. So perhaps you're experiencing an unpleasant ordeal or an unpleasant situation, and you are trying to get through it. You are trying to survive it. You are trying to endure it. I know this time of year, a lot of people are finishing up school and they have final exams in either, if they're in high school or university, and they are trying to survive it and they're trying to get through it, which is the picture of the young lady studying and says, I don't know how I'll get through my final exams. How are you going to get through this? How are you going to survive? So again, one phrasal verb, 3 different meanings for it. Let's continue, and then we're going to practice. Again, if you guys have any questions, just hit us up in the chat. Ask us anything English related, and we will try and get back to you, all right? So also, again, let us know your name, where you're watching from, and if you really want to be helpful for us, again, just share the video. Sharing is caring. Help us spread the word. And to spread the word is an idiom that means to talk to other people and other people and other people so more people know what's going on. All right? So I digress. The next one that I want to talk to you about. So we've done get around, we've done get through. The third phrasal verb that I want to show you is this one right here, to get across. All right. And to get across, thankfully, this one just has two meanings that we are going to discuss. The first one is a little bit similar to getting through to someone, all right? Trying to make them understand. To get across is to make someone understand something. The difference between the two, if you want to get through to somebody, you are wanting to communicate with them person to person. If you're trying to get across, you're actually trying to get something across, all right? Not just you communicating, you are actually trying to communicate an idea or an opinion or a thought, and you are trying to get that across to the other person. So I gave you an example sentence up there. Again, she couldn't get her point across because he wouldn't listen. And a lot of times, you are talking about this, you're getting your point across, which is you're trying to say something, you're trying to express your feelings, your thought, and you get your point across. And this is kind of a very common collocation used in English with this phrasal verb, to get some point across, all right? All right, George, excellent example sentence. All right, I have to go through some work on Sunday morning. You have to get through some work on Sunday morning. Yes, unfortunately, I'm sorry that you have to be working on Sunday, but it's all good. Great example sentence. Again, I'd encourage you guys for more practice as we're going through these, just like that. Keep writing in the chat. Throw out some sentences. I'll talk about them. And let you know how they work if you're using it in the right context. But again, it's good to keep practicing. The other meaning of get across is more the literal meaning, is that you are trying to go across something and get from one side to another. Now, I would say there is a difference between get across and go across. And that difference is when somebody says get across, I think that there is something kind of blocking or stopping somebody, or something making it difficult to try and go to the other side. So I'll give you an example. So if we are standing at a street and there are no cars around, absolutely nothing, then I would just say, hey, we need to go across to the other side. We're just going to cross the street. If there are a lot of cars there and it's going to be very difficult and we have to wait and maybe it's a little dangerous, then I would more likely use get across, again, because there is a challenge in the way that may be preventing us from going from one side to another. So that is a slight difference between get across and go across. But you can use get across, and then talking about, like I said in the example sentence, we need to get across the street. All right. So, Jesus from Venezuela. Awesome. Welcome. Again, if you guys are just joining us, tell us hello, tell us your name, where you're joining us from. And if you really want to practice as we go through these phrasal verbs, write a sentence out there in the chat. Tell us something about you, about your lives, using one of these phrasal verbs. So we've done 3 phrasal verbs now. We've talked about get around, get through, get across. I'm going to go do 2 more phrasal verbs, and then I'm going to ask you guys some questions, and I'm going to want you to put your answers into the chat, and we'll see how that goes. So the next phrasal verb that I want to show you is this one, okay, which is get off. Okay, so get off, it's a big one. It has 4 different meanings. And again, I think these are phrasal verbs that many of you might already be familiar with. You've already learned them, but maybe there might be a meaning that you are not too familiar with. So again, it's always good to learn new ways to practice and improve your English. So get off, I have 4 meanings. The first one is talking about leaving a place, and typically you're almost always talking about work. So if somebody is at work and you're talking to somebody else and you might ask them, hey, what time do you get off? They're talking about what time are you going to be leaving work. And this is a very common question, like the one that I gave you. What time do you get off work? So right now I have a question for you that I want you to write in the chat. I am going to ask you, what time do you get off work? What time do you normally get off work during the week or on the weekends if you're on this? So I want you to try and write that sentence in the chat. Answer that question. What time do you get off work? And try again, just practice. Write a full sentence, write a complete sentence. Don't just give me a time. What time do you get off work? Let us know. The next sentence, or the next meaning of get off is one that you guys are probably already familiar with and that you know about, which just is to exit or disembark something. You're talking about getting off of a bus, getting off of a train, getting off of a bike, getting off of a horse. So these are some of the more common ones that you use get off with. Notice that there's a lot of transportation ones, but you do not get off of a car, all right? That is not one that we use, but when you're actually kind of leaving something and disembarking is kind of the word that I would like to use with those other forms of transportation. You get off of a bus, you get off of a train. Even in the example sentence, you would say like, we got off the train immediately. You left the train, you got off. The next meaning of get off is to, again, you're basically telling somebody to stop touching you in some way, shape, or form. So for example, maybe somebody steps on your toes or they step on your foot. And you'll just tell them, hey, get off of me. Hey, get off of my foot, all right? You're basically saying, stop touching, all right? Or maybe somebody tackles you, all right? If you are wrestling, playing around with your friends, and you just say, hey, get off of me. That is another common phrasal verb meaning for get off. The last one, if you're trying to get off, is to avoid being punished severely. So what I mean by this is, if somebody went to jail and then they got out, you would say, they got off easy or something like that. So actually, it's kind of like you're getting punished, but it wasn't a very severe punish. So you'd say, again, mostly as a collocation, you get off easy. All right. So sometimes at school, I use this as an example as for our sentence. Students maybe cheated on the test. And maybe they didn't have much of a punishment. And you could say, wow, they got off easy for cheating on the test. All right. You get off is kind of to avoid a severe punishment, and you have a lesser punishment. And you are able to get off easy. The next one. All right. Guys, you aren't very chatty today. All right. Like, again, let us know. What time do you get off of work? And again, use it in the sentence. Try to practice. Practice makes perfect. Hello, Mateus. How's it going? If you guys are joining us, again, let us know your name. Where are you writing us from? It's always good to know. So we've talked about now, that is the fourth one. Get around, get through, get across, get off. I want to talk to you one more phrasal verb, and then I want to do some practice. And I'm going to give you 10 questions, 10 fill-in-the-blank questions, and I want you to write the answer using one of these phrasal verbs. So the next one that I want to show you is this one, all right, which is get by. Okay. So to get by has two different meanings. Jesus, I get off work at 4 p.m. Awesome. Perfect use. Natalia, it doesn't work. Sorry. Hey, okay, that's fine. Good use of the word get off 4 p.m. Nice. That's good. You got the whole afternoon after you get off work mostly. So again, this phrasal verb to get by has two meanings, and these are maybe a little more difficult, especially the first one. To get by is to have enough money or knowledge to do what is necessary. Now, these are two separate meanings. So for example, in the sentence that I gave you, like he lost his job, but he's still getting by. This one is talking about money mostly and the ability to survive. So if you're able to get by, Typically, it's talking about you're able to survive with the little resources, the little means that you have. Often you're talking about, in this context, maybe you lose your job, or maybe you're experiencing some financial difficulties, and you say, yeah, you're still able to get by. It can also be used when talking about knowledge, which is a little different. So I'll tell you, this would be like kind of in the context of school or education. Maybe you're taking a class and it is so difficult and you don't really understand the material, and you would say like, look, I really don't know how I'm going to get by. Which is, I don't know how I'm going to survive with the knowledge that I have. Or, for example, maybe you finished and you got a good grade in the class and you say, wow, I can't believe I got by with an A. That you were able to survive with the knowledge you have, you were able to get by with this grade. So to get by is, again, you're talking about typically either money or knowledge, and you're able to survive and endure. Vishal, hi, hello, how are you? Where are you writing us from? Let us know. And tell us too, what time do you get off work? That was the question that I had for everybody. The other meaning of get by is, again, more of a literal one. You're trying to pass somebody or something that is blocking you or in your way. So if you are here and you need to go over there, and maybe you need to get by something, and this is, again, little different than get around. To get around, you are actually going out of the way to go to where you want to be. To get by is kind of going through. And so, for example, like, have those two nice security guards there. Hello, from Argentina. Awesome, cool. Got people from all over the place joining us. Estella, welcome. In that picture, those two security guards, so this is something you would hear a lot of times in movies or TV, and they say, oh, how are we going to get by the guards? Or how are we going to get by this person or that thing? How are we going to get from here to the other side and get by? Okay, so awesome. Joining us from India, cool. A lot of different places today. One of the questions that I had, we talked about the phrasal verb get off. Let me know, what time do you get off of work? I will get off my work in almost 4 p.m. All right. Nice. George, excellent sentence. A lot of times you really don't need to use it like as an estimate. You just say, hey, I get off around 4 p.m. or something. If you want to, like, if you're not sure of what time, you get off around 4 p.m. Sometimes you get off before, sometimes you get off later. I'll get off around 4 p.m. I get off school. It's a good sentence. I get off school at 4 p.m. Typically, again, I'd say get off when you're talking about leaving. It's almost always used in the context. You're talking about work mostly. So you wouldn't really, you would say kind of maybe get out of class at a certain time. Like, I get out of class at 4 p.m. Or you just say, yeah, I finish school at 4 p.m. If you're talking about getting off, it's more something work related. When you're talking about what time do you leave work, what time do you get off. So again, for those of you that are just joining us, again, hit us up in the chat. Let us know your name. Where are you watching this lesson from? We are talking about 5 different phrasal verbs with get and their different meanings. So just to review, again, it's always good to review because some of you, maybe you've been watching this from the beginning, but just to show those that just joined us, we talked about, again, I'll just run back through these real quick to review. Get around is, again, talking about 3 different meanings, going from one place to another, maybe traveling from country to country, and you really get around a lot. It can be to avoid something. Oftentimes, I would say avoiding traffic. We need to get around the traffic. And again, it's also can be used talking about in the having a lot of sexual relations. Just saying, it's a standalone sentence, mostly gossip, saying, oh, he gets around or she gets around, and you're talking about some other person. To get through, it was the second one we talked about, and you're talking about getting through to someone, like on the phone, you're trying to connect with them. It can also mean to communicate effectively with somebody. I'm trying to get through to you to help you understand the meaning of these phrasal verbs, and hopefully this is making it easier. It can also mean to get through something, to survive an ordeal or an issue or a situation that maybe you find difficult. We talked about get across, and after I go through these, I'm going to give you guys the questions. To get across, that first one is to help make somebody understand something, and typically you're talking about something like an idea, a feeling, an opinion. You're trying to get that across to another person or to a group of people. You're trying to get your point across. And then the other one, like I said, is to get across, like literally to go from one side to another, but it is typically talking that something is maybe a little more challenging that you have to get across, and that was the difference between get across and go across. And I use that street as an example. If there's no cars, I would go across the street. If there are cars, I would say, oh, wow, we need to get across the street. Try and find some way to do it. The next one we talked about again quickly was get off. I asked you guys, what time do you get off work? Again, it's just talking about work. Another meaning for get off was, again, like the bus, the train, a bike. You are actually getting off of it and leaving. Another one is, again, telling somebody, hey, get off of me. Somebody's on top of you, or maybe, like I said, they step on your foot and you just say, hey, get off. Asking them, stop touching me. Get off, probably the more difficult one would be in this context of, getting out of a punishment. And then you're talking more specifically about crime. Maybe somebody's going to jail and they got off pretty easy. They weren't severely punished. And then the last one, we just talked about it, was get by, talking about getting by with money, getting by with knowledge, and surviving and being able to get through this. And it also means, again, getting by if somebody's blocking your way. Excellent. George, I'm following you on Twitter. You have nice lessons there. Thank you very much. Again, if you guys want more practice, please follow us on social media. We're on Facebook and Twitter. We post a lot of different questions. It's not just stuff that's YouTube related to help you guys practice and kind of test your different knowledge of English. So right now, I am going to test your knowledge of what we just learned, okay? So, wait a second. I want to delete this before I turn it on. I don't want to show you the question just yet. Here we go. Okay, so here we have the 5 phrasal verbs. Okay, now there's my hand. 5. That we talked about. Get around, get through, get across, get off, and get by. So I am going to ask you a question, and what I want you to do is write it into the chat. And I want to see how fast you guys are. I know there's a little bit of a delay in this, but I'm going to give you a question, and I just want you to write the answer, okay? Which phrasal verb are you going to use? Get around, get through, get across, get off, or get by. So your first question is right here. Let's see. Okay, so there's the first question. I want you to write the answer, write the phrasal verb in the chat, all right? So the question, the bridge is destroyed. How are we going to the other side? The bridge is destroyed. How are we going to the other side? All right, again, we're talking about going from one side to the other. Which phrasal verb are we going to use for that? All right, just write your answer into the chat. Okay, what do you think? The bridge is destroyed. How are we going to the other side? Again, if you know, we're talking about a bridge. Probably the bridge is crossing over some type of river or something. which means that there is a challenge. Remember, if the bridge is maybe crossing over something, there is a challenge standing in your way, which means, let me write, I'll throw the answer in there for you. So the bridge is destroyed. How are we going to get across to the other side? Whoops, that was... There we go. Okay, that is actually still, can't see that on there. Let's... All right, remember the reason that we're talking about, like we use get across, there we go. We're trying to get from one side to the other, and typically, like I said, there's usually something that maybe is preventing you from doing this. Remember, I used the example of crossing the street when there are a lot of cars. You wouldn't really say, I know some of you said get through to the other side. Like usually if you're getting through something, you're actually going through like a tunnel or something like that. So again, in this context where you're specifically talking about a bridge, that's kind of the key word there. You would be talking about getting across from one side to the other. All right. Again, all right, I was wrong. Don't worry. It's all right if you get it wrong. This is all good. It's just practice, practice, practice. Next question that I have for you guys. Okay, this one should be easy. You guys should get this one. The next question for you, this right here. All right. She's working late and won't until 11 p.m. That's my popping sound effect for those blank spaces. She's working late and won't until 11 p.m. Which one is it? Which phrasal verb are we talking about? Get around, get through, get across, get off, or get by. If you're just joining us, we're doing a little practice right now, quizzing you on your knowledge of these get phrasal verbs. And again, even if you're watching this later and this is no longer being live streamed, I'd suggest, go ahead, keep answering. Write these answers in the comments. It's good to keep practicing. So the key word here is, again, we are talking about work. Okay, so if we're talking about work, then the phrasal verb that we would want to use, make sure I have enough room, is this one. All right, she's working late and won't get off until 11 p.m. We're talking about work. We're talking about leaving work. We want to use get off. Excellent. Good job, guys. Let's go with the next one. All right, you're ready. Here we go. The next one, question I have for you is boom. This one right here. All right, we were finally able to and speak to our family. All right, think about the context that this sentence is being used in. What is the situation? What do you think just by reading this sentence? We are finally able to and speak to our family. Okay, you know that you're speaking to somebody, you are communicating. All right. Which phrasal verb is it? Write it in the comments. All right, let's see who's the fastest. All right, we were finally able to and speak to our family. Which phrasal verb do you think we use? Get around, get through, get across, get off, or get by? Okay. All right, so think about it. Got some answers. Excellent. You're talking about, we're talking about speak to our family. You're talking about talking to somebody. And typically in this context, given that, we're finally able to and speak to our family, it makes me think that they are not in the same areas. They are not right in front of each other, which means that probably they're talking on the phone. All right. So if they're talking on the phone, we would say we would want to use this one. All right. Get through. We were finally able to get through and speak to our family. All right. You're talking about communicating with somebody. Get through. The next one. All right. Let's do some more. Boom. All right. This one, it's easy, but it's a little more challenging. I want you to use the phrasal verb, but use it with the correct form. Okay? Try to see if you can use it in the correct form. How would you really complete this sentence? Right now, I'm the bus. Right now, I'm the bus. Are you going to use get around, get through, get across, get off, or get by? And which form? That is a hint as to what I want you to try and write in there. Okay? All right. How would you complete this other sentence? Right now, I'm the bus. The key word, another key word in here is right now. You are talking about now, now. Which verb form do we use with right now? Okay, right now, I'm the bus. What phrasal verb? Which of these five phrasal verbs are you going to use? All right, you guys are getting it. Awesome. I like that you're getting the form that I'm talking about. Again, we're talking about something that is happening now. So which verb form are we going to use? Okay. The answer, okay, remember, we're talking about the bus. You're talking about a situation, most likely, what do people do? They either get on a bus or they get off of a bus, okay? So they're talking about, the other phrasal verbs, you wouldn't really, it doesn't make much sense to use with this context of talking about a bus. Again, when you're getting off of something, getting off a train, getting off a bus, getting off a bike, we would say right now, again, because you're talking about now, which is the present continuous. Right now, I'm getting off the bus. Okay, so again, maybe you're talking to somebody on the phone and they say, hey, what are you doing? And you're like, well, right now I'm getting off the bus. Okay, you just got somewhere, you are getting off, or maybe you are traveling somewhere. Okay, does that make sense? If you get off of something, you are exiting it, you are leaving. Okay, the next question that I have for you, okay, let's do another one. This one right here, okay? Which of these 5 get phrasal verbs would you use? Get around, get through, get across, get off, get by. So the sentence, I just barely with a passing grade, okay? I just barely with a passing grade. I kind of, when we were going through this, I gave you some of those examples. If you're just joining us, again, we're just kind of doing a little phrasal verb quiz with get. So I would ask you guys, write your answers in the comments. Right or wrong, it really doesn't matter. This is not a test. This is just for you to practice and make this a little more interactive in an actual lesson. So fill in the blank with this sentence, I just barely with a passing grade. Okay? I'll give you a little hint, because I haven't seen any answers. I'll give you a little hint. You're talking about, surviving. You're talking about enduring something with the resources that you have. And this is talking about your knowledge, okay? Your knowledge. You were able to survive or endure with your knowledge and with a passing grade. I almost said the answer right there. I just barely with a passing grade. So this is a context. You're talking about school. You're talking about it. The other thing I would say, again, and I should have reminded you from the beginning, pay close attention to the verb form, okay? So again, in this context, is this a sentence that you would say is in the future? Is it in the present, or is it in the past? All right, are they talking about the future, the present, or the past in this sense? Because I see some of you got the right phrasal verb. So again, this sentence, we told you you're talking about your knowledge, you're able to survive, you're able to endure. It is something that is said, and you're talking about the past because it's a passing grade. You already received it. It's finished. It's done. All right. So I barely got by with a passing grade. Okay, I just barely got by with a passing grade. You took a class, it was difficult. Maybe you thought you were going to fail, but you didn't. You survived, you endured, you got by with the knowledge that you had. And again, this was used in the past. All right, excellent. But you guys got that one? Good job, good job. Next question that I have for you. Let's keep doing some of these. Okay. Next question. Boom. Right time. So we're talking about he's having a tough time, the divorce. We're talking about a difficult situation. All right. Somebody's in experience, a difficult experience, a difficult situation. So which phrasal verb would you use? All right. And again, bonus points, pay close attention to the verb form that you would need to use as well. All right. Are you going to use get around, get through, get across, get off, get by? Okay. Which one would you use? Okay. So he's having a tough time, the divorce. Get around, get through, get across, get off, get by. Remember the verb form or the form that we would need to use. Okay, so again, you're talking about a difficult a situation, an experience that you need to survive. All right. You guys, awesome. If you're having a difficult time with an experience, a situation, you're talking about getting through it. You're talking about surviving it, enduring it, so that it's at a point where it finally ends. So you'd have a tough time. The form that you'd want to use, again, it's not typically a verb, but he's having a tough time getting through the divorce. All right. And this one was a little tricky because, again, the main verb is, talking about like he is having. All right. This is actually, a gerund. So this is going to be a gerund of it. You're having a tough time. I'm having a tough time. When something follows that phrase, you're going to use the gerund. All right. I'm having a tough time doing homework. I'm having a tough time following this lesson. I don't know. I'm having a tough time getting through the divorce. So this one was a little more tricky because we're using the gerund right here. Still, even though it is a phrasal verb, getting through. I don't want to get too much into the grammar. If some of you are sitting there thinking like, what the heck is a gerund? In this sentence, this is the correct context. He's having a tough time getting through the divorce. Excellent. Again, yeah, that one that is a little more difficult. Trying to throw some easier ones out there and then some more challenging ones. So let's do an easier one, okay? Let's do this one right here. So see if you can fill in this sentence. All right. Again, if you're just joining us, we're doing a little phrasal verb quiz here with get. Okay. So I want you to look at the sentence, write the correct phrasal verb in the blank. Get around, get through, get across, get off, or get by. You are stepping on my toes. All right, this is a command. You're using it in the imperative, and you're telling somebody to what? Which phrasal verb, which get phrasal verb are you going to use in this context? So, which one would you guys use? All right. I thought it was a video, not live. No, Marco, we are live, actually. This is live. Okay, excellent. So this one was a little easier, I think. Again, you're talking about somebody stepping on your toes and you want them to stop touching you. So you would tell them to get off. All right, you're stepping on my toes, get off. Okay, again, get off, telling somebody stop touching you is one of the meanings of that phrasal verb. Let's do another one. This one I think is a little more challenging because maybe the context, I think we use it. It's not something you would hear as regularly, okay? So give that one a try. She broke her leg, so it's difficult for her to, okay? So think about, again, the context. Somebody breaks their leg. It's difficult for them to move. So which phrasal verb, which of those get phrasal verbs would complete that sentence? She broke her leg, so it's difficult for her to. We're going to use get around, get through, get across. Ahmad, hey, hi everyone, hey, welcome. How's it going? We're doing a quick little practice with get phrasal verbs. If you're just joining us, I'm giving you some questions and just asking you to fill in the blank with either get around, get through, get across, get off, get by. Write your response in the chat. So she broke her leg, so it's difficult for her to. Which one? Which one do you think? Which one would make the most sense to complete that sentence? All right. And so again, we're talking about, in this context, somebody broke their leg. So it is, like I said, it's difficult for them to move. All right. It's difficult for them. I don't know if you've ever broken your leg before. I haven't, but I imagine it is tough for people to, obviously go from one room to the next, or go shorter distances. So in this context, if you're talking about moving, she broke her leg, so it's difficult for her to get around. Remember, this was the first phrasal verb and the first meaning that we talked about during this live lesson. I told you to get around basically means to move from one place to another. And you can use it in the context of traveling long distances, whether maybe you say, oh, I've been to France, I've been to Egypt, I've been to China, I've been to the United States. And you say, wow, that person really gets around. They move a lot from one place to the other. It can also mean about moving short distances. I said typically, getting around is used frequently when you're talking about maybe somebody who's older, maybe a grandparent, that you're talking about, oh, my grandmother has a tough time getting around, moving from one place to another one. All right, so does that make sense? Let's do another one. Okay, I got two more for you. Here we go. So the next one, boom. All right, so this one, it is a separable phrasal verb. All right, I didn't talk about too much about which one's separable, inseparable. Again, it's another challenge with phrasal verbs. Some of them you can, some of you can't. In this one, it is separated. If you'd let me, my point, then I'll tell you why you're wrong. All right. Again, this is a common collocation in English. When you're talking about your point, it is commonly used with this get phrasal verb. Are we talking about get around, get through, get across, get off, or get by? Okay. Which one would you guys say? Which phrasal verb? Write it in the chat. If you are watching this later, again, just write the sentence in the comments. Make it more active language learning. Even if it is a recorded video and we are not live anymore, write it in the chat. Keep practicing. For those of you who are with us now, of course, we are live. So what I want you to do, again, which phrasal verb are you going to use with that question? If you'd let me, my point, then I'll tell you why you're wrong. All right? You're talking about trying to share information, trying to express your feeling, your opinion, your idea. What would you say? What phrasal verb would complete that sentence? Which get phrasal verb? Get around, get through, get across, get off, or get by? Again, like I said, this one maybe is a little more difficult because a lot of times I think, again, you hear it in this context when you're talking about somebody's point. They're trying to express themselves, and you're using which one? Okay. All right. So again, if we're talking about an idea or an opinion, and especially if you're talking about your point, we would say, if you'd let me get my point across, then I'll tell you why you're wrong. Okay? If you'd let me get my point across, then I'll tell you why you're wrong. So again, if you're talking about your point, you want to get your point across. Get it across to somebody. You want them to understand your idea, your opinion. You want to get something across to someone else. And a lot of times, like I said, it's used with the word point. It's also could be used with the word message. You want to get your message across. When you're wanting to share your idea, a lot of times politicians would talk about this when they're talking about a new policy or something that they want to implement in the government, and they want to get their message across to the public, to the people. So again, when you're using with get across, a lot of times you find it with either point or maybe a word like message, to get your point across or to get something across to someone else. Okay? Let's do one more. All right, let's do another. Let's give this one a try. So hopefully that one makes sense. You want to get your point across. How about this one? It's hard to him because he's so stubborn. All right? It's hard to him because he's so stubborn. Which phrasal verb, which get phrasal verb most appropriately completes this sentence? Okay? And this is a little more maybe challenging again. It's hard to him because he's so stubborn. Which phrasal verb are you going to use? Are you going to use get around, get through, get across, get off, or get by? Okay? Remember, in this instance, you're talking about communicating with somebody. You're trying to communicate with somebody, and the other key word that here is stubborn. If you know what stubborn means, then I think this would make a little more sense. Okay? If somebody is stubborn, they don't like to change. They don't really listen to people. They do whatever they want, and it's difficult to change them. So if somebody is stubborn, it's hard to, all right, it's hard to him because he's so stubborn. Maybe I am actually like this sometimes. I can be very stubborn, so it's hard to me. So which one would you say? Oh, Eloisa, hello, how are you? Got some new names up there now. So again, write your answer in the chat. Or if you don't know, just write, I don't know. It's okay. Again, this isn't this isn't a major quiz or a test that you guys are taking. It's all just about practice. And you know what they say? Practice makes perfect. Okay? So again, you're talking about you're trying to communicate something with this person, him. Maybe we're talking about me because he's so stubborn. And to give you the answer, it's hard to get through to him because he's so stubborn. All right, you get through to someone else. One of the key words I'd say in there was that to, because I told you this is technically a 3-word phrasal verb. Get through to someone. All right, to be able to communicate with them so that you guys make a connection, that you understand each other. And this is different than get across, because getting across, you're talking kind of about something else. You're talking about your idea, your thought. This is just trying to establish a connection with somebody so that you can start a conversation, so that you can try to find some common ground. And you say it's hard to get through to him because he's so stubborn. Okay? So again, I hope you guys enjoyed that lesson. What I'd say is, if you came in a little late, again, you can go back, rewatch it. We went through the meaning of each of those phrasal verbs. Where we talked about all of those. We talked about get around, get through, get across, get off, get by, and their different meanings, and then we did that practice. So again, I'd recommend rewatching it again, going through the practice again, see if that makes sense, because again, all of this is going to help you. And phrasal verbs, they can be a real pain. I know that, and they are difficult to try and teach because again, you have one phrasal verb with all of these different meanings. But it's just good to practice and expose yourself to these meanings. So again, you'll start to internalize this information and you will really start to understand it. So again, we appreciate you guys joining us. And finally, I'd say check us out right there on social media if you want more practice. If you're using any of these social media accounts, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, obviously you're watching us on YouTube right now, but these are all good ways to just get a little exposure each day. We put up different questions for you to answer. If you want to answer them or not, it's up to you. But it's always good to have that option, and this is available for you, so please take advantage of it. The last thing that I want to tell you is please, again, sharing is caring. If you want to help us spread the word to other people, please share this video or some of our other videos. We are trying to reach as many people as possible, and we are going to keep doing these live stream lessons. And hopefully we'll do them a little more regularly so you'll know exactly when to expect them. But right now we did one on Saturday. We're going to try and do one next Saturday. And we post that on both Facebook and Twitter so you will know what time we will be doing that. So again, thank you guys for joining us. Natalia, George, Marco, Luisa, who else was with us? Thank you guys. Ahmad, it was great having you guys here. Hope you enjoyed this lesson. Hope you enjoyed learning some new phrasal verbs. Hope you learned some of these new phrasal verbs and now try to go out and continue practicing them. All right. Thank you guys, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.